like.
Fine young man.
Thank you.
Some feelers out for him. A friend of mine runs the real estate program at Temple, so I try to get him up because he's done a lot of this placemaking, planning. So I just haven't heard from David, but I know he's been traveling. He's been down in Florida and out in Texas. So
Oh, thank you.
you're right.
Jim
This is your
Jim
first.
usually zooms into these meetings.
I don't even think we need it.
Yeah, he does.
And so do we.
What?
Where does Jim live? Montgomery County?
Bucks County, I think,
Bucks
or
County,
maybe Montgomery. I don't know. I get confused down there.
Collegeville area.
Collegeville, wherever that is. Might be
Down the
near
turnpike.
Philly. Just say
Yeah.
near Philly and you got it.
That I know. Okay. There he is. Yeah.
Hi, Doug. Can you hear us? I think you're on mute, Doug. There he is.
Good evening.
Good evening. We're just getting ready to call the meeting to order. I just wanted to make sure you were connected. I'd like to call the East Hempfield Rec Authority meeting for Wednesday, February 23rd to order. Start tonight's meeting with a standing committee report. The lease negotiating committee, I have something to report on that front. I did speak at length with the folks from Bennett Williams. They just need to get a date from us, and they're prepared to meet as early as next week. So before I leave this evening, we can just get some compare calendars and then do that.
And they are a broker or who? I'm
Yes,
sorry.
Brad is the broker of record for Bennett Williams out of York and represents the Central Pennsylvania area for that firm. In fact, all of their focus is primarily retail. They do the most leasing and sale of retail properties in the region. And they do work for us, the three centers that we have. And they're going to come in and actually the negotiating committee is going to basically meet with them just to talk about the possibilities for the site and then have them come and report back to the full board here after we have a chance to meet with them.
Super.
There's a new committee for operations, maintenance agreement, employee agreement. That's the committee that came out of the discussion that came out of the email that you sent around, Cindy?
Correct. We need a name for that committee. Don't know what you want to call yourselves, but
Well, it's gonna involve more than the lease. It's also gonna deal with the employee agreement also at some point. So maybe we should contract development committee, if we need to put a name on it. What we're working on right now is just the management and operations side of the relationship between the Recreation Authority and the township, formalizing that. We reviewed a draft this week with Frank. He had some ideas, we had some ideas. We're gonna fine tune it. And I would hope be able to come back to the full rec authority with, a draft, something a little more than a draft, maybe a proposed contract between the Recreation Authority and the township.
you may need to speak into your mic so
Oh,
Doug can
okay.
hear you.
You can-
I'm good. I heard him.
Okay.
thanks.
Probably having some notion of finance and operations in the name of the committee, maybe the Finance and Operations Committee. So that way, I know that around some of this is going to be matters related to future revenue and how that's handled.
Fine.
So
Yeah.
you okay with that?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
And that is Ryan, Tom, and Dave on that committee.
And I think the other big point that I'd make is that we're going to try to have the financial side of the Recreation Authority created at some point during 2022. By financial side, a checking account, some purview over income, revenues, payment of bills, those kind of things, to where we're more of an operating entity. I think we've talked about this before, and that's, I think, was one of the goals in creating the authority. So we'll bring that along, and, you know, right now we're thinking maybe by July 1.
Are we able to still use the township staff administratively for support?
That will be the goal, yes.
Okay.
At least initially, you know, and again, you know, we've talked about this down the road. This should be a fully functioning recreation authority at some point where perhaps we'd have our own staff. I mean, that's a long, long way off, but as a goal. David?
I basically concur with what you said. We did have a meeting yesterday with Frank Micarelli, and we discussed some ideas with him. The thought is, as Tom mentioned, that we'll be ready to go financially with having our own books July 1. And the intent is to have the township employees remain township employees, and that we would lease their services from the township rather than have them become authority employees.
I know that this is just a sort of, that's getting down the weeds a little bit, but are we going to be on a calendar year, just like the township, or will it be fiscal year?
It's
think
going to
I
be the
think
calendar year,
be a
but
calendar.
Calendar year,
yeah,
okay.
but for this year, it's talking to Joe and Cindy, they think they can satisfy the auditors where we'll have 6 months of the township with the financials and 6 months of the authority. And then in 2023, it'll be all on the authority. And we are going to have a separate audit every year rather than be a part of the township audit. That was brought up by Frank. So.
Great.
We also mentioned basically, and we have to look at the language on this, that in the event that there is a shortfall in revenue compared to expenses, that the township would basically lend the money to the authority at zero interest until the authority's revenue had built back up again and the cash flow was appropriate to where we could repay the township. Did I say that right, Tom?
Well, I would say that's a possibility, you know, depending on where we are with the finances.
Yeah.
Yeah, right now, we're in a position where with the increased revenue that we're getting from blue collar, that it appears that our revenues exceed our expenses. Okay, the golf course had $150,000 excess at the end of the year. So the golf course right now is in a very positive financial situation. The next few months will be lean, so we may be spending a little bit more than we're taking in, but we do have a little bit of a reserve. So the Recreation Authority does have the township as a backstop. But again, hopefully down the road, if we need operating capital, You know, we could pursue it with a financial institution, just like any other business would, to get through some lean times, but so there's really, we really have two options of funding any deficit. But Dave assures me we will not have a deficit anymore.
Yes, sir.
So we'll have revenue, but so borrowing money, will the golf course become an asset of the authority or remain an asset of the township?
It's going to remain an asset of the intention is it will remain an asset of the township.
Yeah.
And we'll lease the asset, the ground lease. We lease that from the township. And then we run a business on that lease as part of that lease.
Will we be able to use the township as credit enhancement for any loans that we have as an authority? Because we don't really have any collateral.
But we don't right now, right?
Right.
Right.
Or that if we build up reserves, that
Yeah, I
certainly.
mean, I'm fairly confident that as long as things operationally stay positive and things are moving in the right direction, as I said, the township is there as a backstop, but hopefully down the road, maybe you get weaned away from that to the point where we've got a good business where we've shown $200,000 or $300,000 a year, maybe in profit, and we could develop on our own a financial facility with a bank somewhere for working capital, if in case we need it, just as a reserve.
Well, the good news is that, you know, we're going to hopefully get something accomplished this year on the other real estate opportunity. So that'll put more dollars in the coffers.
Absolutely.
And as we already know, just the initial opportunities that we looked at, those improvements that will happen on the site would happen on behalf of the tenant and not the township. So the monies would not have to go in for the improvements for the land.
Right. That's not to say that we would never make any improvements.
Right.
But, you know, most of them are going to be on the tenant side of the ledger, I would hope. Cindy, anything else?
I think you covered it. It was a good meeting. Good start.
I see no action items for tonight's agenda. Old business goals and objectives for the golf course. I don't know how much you want to delve into that, but it sounds like these initiatives that we talked about tonight, at least in the near term, I think cover that. Tom, unless you wanted to,
No, I
or
think
anybody else wants to.
it'll keep us busy for a while. The only other comment that I would make, and this is sort of in conjunction with the operation and maintenance agreement, you know, in my mind, and this is just my thinking personally, perhaps at some point we would want to develop a greens committee on the Recreation Authority to work with Jim Milcavige directly. And sort of wean him away from the management by the township. Could be 2 or 3 people. Obviously, Recreation Authority, but you may even want to include a resident or 2 on a Greens committee of some type. It might make sense. Just thinking out loud. That's all.
Well, there's always is, we always know that there's a few guys out there who are passionate about their golf. They want to know how fast the greens are or not, you know, and what kind of condition they're in. So I don't think we'll be long trying to find people with strong opinions.
Well, if we even want to do it, I'm just,
Yeah, no, I think it's an excellent idea. It helps you sort of establish a standard, you know, if you know sort of the more avid golfers that are out there and using the golf course more frequently, you know what will attract other golfers to the course, and course condition is like really the number one piece.
Sounds like you're volunteering for that committee, Mike. I don't golf. So
I would love to golf, but I haven't golfed in so long.
Dan golfs.
Dan could be a good Dan could be a good candidate for that committee.
Dan golfs, I golf.
I'd like to know a little bit more about the parameters of that
Well, you
committee.
develop-
I would consider that.
20 hours a week commitment, you're good.
The other thing in terms of goals, we briefly mentioned it at the meeting yesterday, was the banquet facility, and then we have the barn, which has the pro shop in it and rooms that aren't used. We probably have another year before Blue Collar decides to put a deck on. That deck is going to probably be attached to the barn. So I don't know if you want to develop a committee to look at what facilities the golf course really needs. We have the banquet, we're not going to get rid of that. But the barn, and then we have the maintenance building. Are they now one building? Are they a smaller feature of that? But it should be looked at, should be thought about and studied before Blue Collar comes in and says, we want to put the deck on.
I also wanted to report, I went through all the old documentation on the signage issue. As far as there was no discussion about the cost sharing or in any direction. It just merely said that we had the right to approve any sign that they wanted to put on the property. So I did not find any economics or business terms attached to the signage matter. So just thinking about this, the lease negotiating committee, do you want that to have an expanded role with sort of just talking about facilities in general or deployment of the facilities, reuse or adaptive reuse? Because I think that's going to tie in.
together, I would think, right? Modifications that we have to make to the property to facilitate a retail or,
Right.
you know,
Is this negotiating committee, is that still me, you and Ryan, Mike? Or did that change?
Well,
I
I
think
have
Steve's on that. I think.
Steve's on there.
Steve's on it
Okay.
and Ryan is still on it, I think. No, I don't recall.
I think Ryan is off. It's Steve, Mike
Steve went
and
on.
Dan.
I think it's three of us.
Three of
I think
us.
three of
All right,
us.
so, okay, great. So we'll just get together so we can get together with Brad Rohrball from Bennett Williams.
We do still, on the barn side of the building, we have a roof expense that was talked about at some point. This could have been 2 years ago where it was 5 years out, but
Eventually that barn roof will need to be replaced, yes. We'd like to also paint the weather guys at the top. But that, at this point, could be done when the roof is done. They don't look nice. They're rusting, and things of that nature. So yeah, there will be some capital improvements that have to be done at that barn. I think the mechanicals are in pretty good shape. The wiring is scary, but functions. The plumbing, I think, also functions, so.
I didn't see that Jim joined us for golf operations report,
He did not, no. I haven't heard from him.
but we have a copy of that in our packet, so.
Yeah.
Anything to report on the Susquehanna River Basin Commission permit renewal for Well C?
Yes, so was working towards the goal of getting that submitted by November the 21st of this year. I started like 2 years out, kept reminding David Miller Associates, hey, it's coming, it's coming, it's coming. We had a meeting with SRBC, getting prepped, looking at well monitoring, and then it fell off my radar. It did not, there was some miscommunication with DMA. They thought that we were waiting until the Hempfield Water Authority was straightened out, which they're not yet. So there's a whole calamity of issues. Essentially, we missed the deadline. So we have to go back to the SRBC Commission, requesting them, explaining the situation, requesting them to allow us to submit, and we want to have that done and submitted by middle of March, I believe. So had a little bit of a hiccup. We're moving forward, hopefully get that accomplished. The gist of the conversation was they didn't want to deal with us and the Water Authority at the same time. And they had hoped that the Water Authority would be settled in 2 months. That was in last March. And of course, they're not. They're still arguing about the issues. And that's why we didn't get filed. And so,
Arrow is the engineer for the Water Authority,
yes,
for the authority, and who's their solicitor for the water, for the authority, the Water Authority?
I don't know. I don't know that they used a solicitor for SRBC yet. They've been dealing with their several engineers. They have a specialist from not affiliated with Arrow, but that's been guiding them.
Right, okay.
But an attorney's been here for SRBC representing them, but not for the authority. I don't think they have an attorney on their board either. So that's an interesting question. I can ask.
Yeah, it might be, and I know that there's been some fairly substantial opportunities they've been trying to work out between, you know, the SRB and the authority. So it's just a question, you know, if they do have legal representation, it kind of protects the township a little bit too. You know, you don't want to spend money, you know, just to spend money, but that might be something you want to talk about, or, you know, maybe visit even at the supervisors meeting. So what is the oversight of the authority? What's with the township itself? Is it run at all by the township?
No,
It does have any governance at all?
no. What are they called in terms of the audit?
Who's that? Which
The
authority?
Water Authority.
They're a separate entity, whereas the Recreation Authority is considered a component unit of the township,
Okay,
because the township is heavily involved with the Recreation Authority.
Oddly enough, though, we appoint the board of the Water
Yeah,
Authority.
that's the only thing. Normally, if you're a separate operating authority, the municipality just appoints officials. That's the extent of it.
okay, thank you.
And this is a permit to withdraw a certain amount of water out of well C. Is that the way it works?
Yes, yes. It was grandfathered in for a period of time and lost the grandfathering. Now it needs to be permitted under
And
current regs.
for my information, what's the permit cost?
We don't really know. Several thousands of dollars. Because SRBC keeps changing the numbers and they're fairly high. I think in our budget, we have 35,000 possibly.
Sounds right, yeah.
I think it was like $15,000 for the permit fee, which we haven't even gotten to that point to submit that fee.
Okay, thank you.
So this mitigation grant, this was resubmitted under that DEP grant opportunity. Is that something that, was that a township-based piece, or was that done on behalf of the authority?
It was done on behalf of the township.
Okay.
Under their name. So at this point, we're just waiting to hear if we get any money, which is that piece that went through the golf course meadows and then behind the rec center.
I know we talked about that at length at the last meeting. That was for storm restoration and buffering, is that correct?
Correct.
Does anybody want to talk about any new business?
Anything new on the simulators?
I've reached out to a couple of colleges and Gustavus Adolphus up in Minneapolis and Swarthmore and Philly. And they're both using the TrackMan simulator, so I've reached out to one of their sales reps to try to get some more information. Hopefully be able to make a presentation to the authority next month.
What's the name of that again?
TrackMan.
TrackMan, okay.
Yeah, I mean, I know that there's a bunch of them now.
Mhm.
All around. I was actually just at the one over by billiards place on Manheim Pike there. They have 5, I think, 5 simulators in there. As far as area, I don't know existing area where we'd be able to put that unless we do some renovating up in the barn, the second floor there. I don't think that area behind the pro shop, there's like a room in there that used to be used for gatherings and
Probably not high enough.
probably not. Or if it is, it's gonna still be a little tight. I feel like most of the simulators that I've gone to and seen, they've had close to a 12-foot ceiling. But they range in price from, I'd say, almost like $8,000 to $35,000.
Yeah,
So it just depends on the quality that you want to get. I don't know as far as revenue wise what they generate. I mean, I know that billiards place, it was $40 for 2 hours. Normally it's $80 for 2 hours. But I think we had like a coupon or
And
something.
They're fairly low operating costs too, right? They don't draw a lot of electric or.
I mean, I would assume normal amount. Because there are sensors and you have a computer going, so
Right.
there's software that you need to purchase and projector for the screen, but I can't imagine it's drawing anything crazy.
And you can just use I mean, I don't know exactly, it's not something you need to man correctly. It's not, you're correct. You don't need to have people, employees or.
you would probably need to have someone that would be able to
That could schedule it.
set them up and make sure it's running properly, if there are any
Okay.
questions. So you probably
Or,
would. Need-
or somebody on call, because again, it's a computer system, so it freezes, you need to reset it, and not everybody's
yeah,
gonna
you-
understand how to do that. So, I know the place in Mechanicsburg, they had like a full manual, like book, like if something's wrong, you go to this page and you reset it this way, and here's where this is, but
Is there an average number of these you have to offer in order, in other words, do you need 2 or 3 to have?
no, because they work individual from each other, so it's just a matter of, I guess, how many you want to make available, right? So if we only had one, it's going to get used and probably booked full, and we'll be turning people away, right? So it's just a matter of where's your max capitalization on revenue versus having too many of them where you're
I mean,
sitting
these-
empty.
the payback seems fairly straightforward, since it's something you can do year round practically. And, that's not a huge investment. I mean, if you just said you wanted a 10% return, or you just want to make your money back in a short period of time, you could, let's just pick a number and say there were 15 grand or 20 grand or 24 grand, just, be $8,000 a year that you'd have to do just to cover the cost to pay the simulator back. And then you'd have the cost of operating and a person. And how much did you say it was for?
I mean, we had a discount code, but the one right here on Manheim Pike was $80 so basically $40 an hour, basically is what it was. Different places will charge either by the hour up to 4 people. If you go over 4 people, then the cost might be a little bit more. But normally it's a per hour rate. So you might not finish your round of golf or whatever you're doing, game that you're playing. After 2 hours, you're out. A new person comes in or a new group comes in. So not just groups or birthday parties or whatever, you have the opportunity to do lessons on it. Club fitting, testing to sell clubs in the in the pro shop, instead of giving them a club to go out and work on the course, you can test it out in there.
A lot of these areas have basically putting green behind the actual simulator. So if you do have a party, young kids are there, they're able to putt around.
Mhm.
There's things to occupy and make it very
Mhm.
recreational, family friendly in that respect, if that's the way we wanted to go as well. So the biggest problem that I've heard is that in time, the durability of the screen comes into question. And so if we just had one that was being used,
And it can be a little noisy too. Just from hitting a golf ball into a screen.
whack. Lot of whack.
Well, it becomes a return on investment, if we gotta, let's just say, and I'm not proposing it. Let's just say we took the barn out and built another structure there that would house this equipment. Depending on how many we put in, how heavily it would be used. We'd have to calculate what kind of ROI we would be getting, and we think the sales guy would be able to help us with that, maybe,
I would think so.
when we get to that point. But generally, I like the idea. I think it's it's recreation oriented. Give people an opportunity to play Pebble Beach for $200 a round instead of $400 a round.
I
Right?
mean, $20 or 20 hours is $800, right? So if that was a week, you'd have $3,200 a month in revenue, right? So that's just 50% utilization. The numbers seem to be,
Yeah, it sort of seems to make sense.
right?
Depends on what the initial investment is gonna have to be. Is the initial investment gonna include a building? If it is, then it's that
Could
much
be
more of
there
a
a lot,
challenge,
right?
but
Using it.
I don't mind simulators, but I like the real thing a little
Yeah.
bit better.
yeah, but in the middle of winter,
Right.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
nice to just, we went over on Monday, I don't know, Sunday morning, because we're going to Myrtle Beach tomorrow, so I hadn't swung the club since November.
You thought it was a good time.
So it was, yeah, the weather wasn't cooperating to get to a range, so, we went and used that basically as our range time.
It's kind of like completely forgiving.
I can tell you that, like, even the Manheim one, when I was looking at it, I think they're open from 8 AM to 8 PM, 8 PM is the last time you can book it. And a majority of the time slots were taken from, probably call it noon on, whether it was Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and people are going over and doing it during lunch. So like the downtime is that probably 9 AM to 11, something like that on Monday, Tuesdays.
It's nice that, there's no expectations, and it's very forgiving as far as if you hit the ball and you hit the screen, and maybe you might have yanked it, 100 yards left, but
You don't have to
You're
chase it.
not going to chase it.
you're not going to chase it.
Yeah.
You don't have to get.
No, I think it is.
Find your ball every time.
I think it's a great idea. I think I saw in the notes from last week that, we talked maybe about the Hempfield rec, batting cages or something with the driving range. You could get a better simulator where you could actually have a bat, it can be batting, I believe. So like you could actually just hit things into the screen from that standpoint. Those are probably a lot more
same
expensive.
type of concept with,
A similar concept, right? You hit the ball, it shows where it goes on the field, Now, again, I don't know how the pitching machine works with that, or if you're just swinging at a unrealistic ball, but
Right.
there are multiple things that can be done, like the ones over at Lancaster Country Club. There's shotguns, almost like where the old Nintendo game Duck Hunt, like you can shoot stuff on the
yeah.
screen. They have lacrosse sticks and, so there's a lot of different functions that those screens that they have there. They're a lot more expensive than the $8,000-$10,000 ones we're talking about, but there's multiple uses for these things.
They have food and beverage out at the simulator in Manheim. Township?
No. So there's nothing there. A lot of the places, so that one didn't really say anything about like where you could order from. The one up in Mechanicsburg that I went to, had some other shops in the area where they said, they had, their menus were in there. They let them advertise. I've been to one down in near King of Prussia area. That one had menus too, where the restaurants would walk the food right over, kind of almost delivery. So, I mean, those were nice things. Most of them are all just, BYOB. Now we have the restaurant there that can support all of this. May not be there, not open all hours if you have an 8 a.m., simulator, but the opportunity is there. Now they are, like I said, they're popping up everywhere. So is it diluting the field? I don't know. I think there's still enough supply or demand, put it that way.
Doesn't seem to be one in East Hempfield, at least, right?
Correct.
At this point.
Correct.
Well, I just think I think it's an idea that we should, might have some legs. And I think we should keep pursuing it. And maybe the next step is,
I think it's a good idea to maybe if we do create some type of greens committee or anything to work with Jim over there to say, hey, where could we put this? What could they use it for? How many you think feels would be necessary? Could they staff it? Unless we're considering a separate building,
well,
or a separate whole facility where we talked with Bennett Williams about that too,
let's see, I would suggest maybe that we get an idea of what we're talking about here. I mean, I think we maybe have a good idea, but if you've opened the doors to some other things here tonight with baseball and I don't know, maybe other applications. And again, at the end of the day, it's going to be a financial decision, either for us or for somebody else.
And I think one of the things we can do is maybe collectively, when we get a chance, maybe just each of us sort of pick a venue that is offering other activities at a golf course, and get an evaluation from that golf course. It's a non-competing facility. Just see what they're doing, to create additional revenue and see what kind of facility investment they had to make and what they needed to do. Any other new business? Minutes of the previous meeting. So I have a motion to approve the meetings of the last meeting from January 26th.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
A second.
All those in favor say aye for
Aye.
accept. Aye.
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 Abstain.
6-0.
Do we have any public folks here at all online or?
We do not. I did have one thing though to add for whatever business.
Whatever business.
Whatever business, the golf carts. So we had the struggle with the batteries. So Perry Madonna reached out to the person that we're getting the new carts from. And he actually offered us gas carts. So we got a load of gas carts, 24 of them, and we replaced them with the old carts that had the dead batteries. So now we have 24 gas carts, and I think we have a total of 62 in the fleet now. And the rest are electric, but they're utilizing those to make things work. So that was a great thing. Didn't charge us anything for it. Did it out of the kindness of his heart.
So we now have 62 operating carts.
I think that's what Perry told me, 62. Yes. That seems awfully high.
No, that's
No,
right.
that's
Is
about
that
the right
right?
number.
Okay.
Yeah, because I think we ordered 70 or 72.
Okay.
We should be good to go until the new carts arrive now under this arrangement.
And the last update on those are mid-April. So it's kind of shoved back a little bit. So the gas cart should do as well.
Okay, we have obviously no public comment. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
I'll move.
Second. All those in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
Aye.
You run a good meeting.
Hey, you can share next month too.
Thanks, Mike.
You're welcome.
Thank you,
Good
Doug.
to see you, Doug.
I didn't realize my name tag was over there until I sat down. here.
That's
I got
okay.
very
So
comfortable.
were
I was like,
you
all of
gone for
sudden
like
it's
a week
oh,
down to Murphy Beach?
No, we'll be back Monday.
So is there some
Cindy,
time
when
that
you
works for
brought
you
up the
better next
barn,
week than
Oh,
not?
that's right. Let me check. that.